It's the new year and everyone wants to be more productive in their writing and their ability to get new customers. I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. If you're interested in the new year of me sharing some productivity and strategies to help you get more writing done, then go to the comments below and ask your questions. I want to share today two key areas where you can improve your productivity when it comes to writing. The first one is collaborative editing, and the second is how you do your research or you build on the library of materials that you have. So first off, a lot of the writing I do is technical and compliance documents in a corporate environment with multiple decision makers and some kind of workflow for approval. It's very similar to when you're writing copy for a company, how you might go through an editorial cycle with decision makers, legal, and other groups before you release the copy. Now, if you're not writing for corporate environments, you're not writing for larger clients, then that should be a goal for you in the new year. Writing for a major Fortune 100 corporation is a lot more lucrative than writing for the small business down the street. Now, writing for the small business down the street has value, but you have to use the second part of what we're going to share with you, which is the productivity strategies around research in order to make it more effective. Now, when I'm writing a large document or reviewing a process document, for example, I'm going to receive that document from a business unit that may have literally put that document together by committee. And I'm looking for things about readability, how to make it understood to a third party, how to make it comply with regulatory rules and regulation, regulatory rules, laws, rules, and regulations, and how to make it clear and to pass a third party audit. Those types of functions go beyond the skill of copywriting, but are very valuable to copywriters in environments where you might be doing perhaps a health promotion. You might be doing a promotion to elderly individuals where you have to worry about compliance, where you might be working with the privacy of an individual. You may not be aware, but if you have a letter that has personally identifiable information merged into the letter, there are actual U.S. and foreign laws that apply to how you store the information before you merge it into that letter. And you could be actually violating a law by sending a list of personally identifiable information to a printing house to be merged into a sales letter or lead generation piece. Now, we're not going to go into those details, but if that's something you're interested in me covering in the new year, I can certainly provide you details on how to better handle that and understanding the compliance of what you're writing. But most importantly, if you're working with multiple individuals inside your agency or outside as on the client side, here's 3 important tips. Number 1, before you start writing, clearly define the scope of what you're producing. Are you writing a lead generation piece? Are you writing a sales letter? Are you writing a combination of the two? You also need to clearly define who owns the material you produce. So I write everything with if I'm writing for a corporation, they own everything. But if I'm writing for a company or a private client, then it's a mutual ownership. Now, the stuff I write for corporations, I'm not the primary producer of the creative, so I don't need to own that. But when I write for a smaller organization, I'm the primary producer of the creative. So I do need to have that value for recycling, which we'll talk about in the second part. But again, clearly defining up front what you're going to write, who you're writing it for, who's the audience, who can make decisions about final draft. That's real important. I hear a lot of copywriters who contact me and say, look, I've been writing this sales letter for 3 months now. I expected it to take 1 month, and they just still won't approve the copy and pay out the remaining on my contract or pay out the remaining on the project. So if you get that taken care of up front, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Next, you need to identify who is going to contribute, such as where is the research coming from? Who's going to be involved in that? And then finally, with that final decision maker, what's the criteria for making a decision? Now, this can be real easy if you're writing a lead generation piece. Maybe you're taking their control sales letter and you're digesting it down for a particular audience, And it's intended for lead generation, but it has to be clear, are you writing the copy, or are you also responsible for the reply piece? Are you also responsible for the website landing page? Are you responsible for the mechanisms of that campaign to work? See, you don't want to judge a lead generation piece on the number of leads you get. If they never send it out, you won't ever get paid. And finally, when you're working together as a team, where are you going to store the master file, the document? How are you handling changes and revisions? When is a draft due? All these elements put together at the beginning of a project will save you a lot of time and frustration. Now, some of the efficiencies that I have when it comes to research, when it comes to recycling marketing, because if you're working with a private client and you have a mutual ownership, you can actually library past assignments. Think about this. I have more than 20 years of freelance assignments. I have copywriting, sales letters, lead generation pieces. I have the materials I did for my own company. I have the materials I did for other people's company. I have the experience of writing for corporations, for writing for trade associations, for writing for small businesses. And all of that is on a network attached storage device in my office. And I use tools like DevonThink. Actually, I'm setting up an internal search engine here shortly because a long time ago, I had something like a Google search appliance. But now I found a platform that'll allow me to do that again. My point being is, can you search through historical projects? Have you organized your paper assignments so that you can easily find them and recover them? When clients or subscribers write in with a question, because I'm constantly telling you guys, if you have questions, you can fax or write my office and I'll be happy to answer the questions. I literally go to a private database and extract answers because I've likely answered the question before. And if I don't have an answer that I can extract from my database to recycle the efforts that I made before, remember, information is about doing it once and profiting many times. I can very often answer the question and then plug that information into my library. So this is the second part. This is the research. This is how do you get the answers people need fast. Now, when I'm writing a sales letter for, let's say, an affluent market, I can literally go into my system, search out and find copy samples for people selling to the same audience, information products that teach you how to market to affluent customers, research papers and PDFs about the behavior of affluent customers. I can look at the competitors. So I'm going out doing my research. I put that in the library, and then I can look at competitors who were selling to the same audience. But what's so powerful about this is, again, over 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, you're going to have a library where you can see what they were selling to affluent customers in the 1970s. What worked then, what would still work now. You can see how affluent customers interact with social media. Did you know that the majority of the people on social media, on YouTube, and on these platforms are not affluent individuals? They're very often college students, low-income individuals. They're very often individuals who are in the general population, because very often affluent and high net worth individuals have something better to do than sit around and watching YouTube all the time. So their behavior is different, and they're not necessarily on social media showing off their things. See, people project up. You know, wealthy individuals, maybe rich kids of Instagram, but ultimately, wealthy people are not showing you their yachts on social media because they have an ingrained concern, a psychological concern that someone's going to come take their stuff away. So you understanding these behaviors, it's not something that's going to stay in your brain all the time, but it is something that you can load into a database, you can load into a file system, you can put it in a file cabinet, and then if you have an appropriate way to recover that information, then you'll be able to very quickly and easily bring the materials together to do your research. Now, I know a lot of times in the past I've advocated having researchers on your team. So if you got a good copy assignment, you build in the cost of a researcher. The researcher goes out and gathers marketing collateral and materials, and then they hand them over to you and you write the copy. Well, if you have the right tools in-house, you can actually start building that out faster. And while they're gathering useful materials, you're then logging that into the library, logging that into kind of a table of contents in a sense, or a card file, and ultimately having a means of recalling this information quickly. But again, this is a new year. I want to hear what you're interested in learning about. I've shared with you today how you can approach bigger, more profitable assignments, and some of the value of collaborative editing, meaning not have to redo your changes because you've agreed on a way up front to do tracking of changes, having a change log, for example. And I can go into details about these things. In fact, I could do some video screenshots and or a tutorial, because it really does make a difference. I've been on projects where the outcome of the work impacts $10, $15 million in activity, and people lost drafts. So it was a multi-page, multi-document, we call them binders. So it's a binder that might have multiple files that represent chapters in that binder. I've had people lose like a whole section. And I'll come in and I'll say, okay, what do you need me to do? Let's set up an agreement. What's the scope of work? What's the activity? Give me a copy of all your drafts. And they come back to me in a couple days and they say, well, I can't find the drafts. I found 3 of the 5 drafts. See, first off, I'm being paid, so I'll help them get that straight, but I have to teach them about tracking changes in documents, maintaining a project file that identifies where certain information is in those documents, identifying a means of noting the modifications you make. Too often people just send an email out and they as an attachment on it. Everybody adds to the attachment. It's just a headache. How do we merge the documents together? Well, how do we avoid having to merge documents together? All these things and more I can show you on the Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips website. We can build out some tutorials about them. I can make sure we answer those questions, because real copywriting is a lot more than just writing up a Word document and sending it to somebody. If you want to write copy that sells, if you want to generate high value quality leads, if you want to have larger assignments, $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 assignments, then there are certain things you need to know. And it's not a big change from the copywriting skills themselves, but you can open up new markets. You could be writing for different needs. You can be writing for projects in areas where you maybe have expertise, and your copywriting and your ability to communicate just takes that client to the next level. All this and more is available for you in the new year. The only thing that I'm asking, is to write with your questions, because I've got other things I could be doing, and I want to make sure that I'm answering the questions of private clients, subscribers, and individuals who have raised their hand and said, hey, look, I want to be more effective in my copy. I want to improve my skills. I want to go from a freelance copywriter or an employee copywriter to having my own agency. I want to be able to have larger, more profitable, more lucrative clients. If that's the case for you, then you visit Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, and that's www.adbriefings.co.uk, or ask questions in the comments below. But again, I'm not out there. My podcast is syndicated on like 15 different channels. So if you don't go to the website and send me a fax or write me a letter, then I will not see your question. In another episode, we'll talk about why I have you send a fax or write a letter. But ultimately, I'm at like 85%, 90% billable work. I want to show you how to do the same thing. I want to show you how to have a consistent and lucrative cash flow into your copywriting business, and to be able to do it with less hassle and headache by using systems like the collaborative editing, by using systems like internal technologies that are going to help you improve the speed of your research, and the ability to then, again, recall past work so you can build on past assignments rather than starting from scratch every time. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. I thank you so much for being a part of this podcast and even this publication at Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. It's adbriefings.co.uk. I don't know, folks. Like and subscribe if you can, but more importantly, get out to the website and ask your questions. I'm here to help you transform business relationships and the profits through words that sell by improving your communications, by improving your efficiency, and taking you to the next level so that you can profit from the skills of copywriting. Thanks for listening.